Well, it's easy these days to make fun of the wealthiest 1%, and Michael Lewis makes no exception. In his latest Bloomberg View column, the Flash Boys author writes, in the voice of a Wall Street master of the universe who is plagued by managing his billions of dollars while being investigated by, quote, various government authorities, which might be real life for some titans of finance these days. Well, Lewis says some have even had to go so far as to give up golf. Let me just give you a taste of what he writes. Quote, apparently, Wall Street guys have been fleeing their game because their anxiety has them feeling they need to text all the time and they can't free up their hands long enough to swing the club. It's like we've all become teenage girls. Well, for more, I'm joined by Jason Kelly of Bloomberg Link. He's the author of the book, The New Tycoons, Inside the Trillion-Dollar Private Equity Industry That Owns Everything, which is all along the lines, Jason, of what Michael Lewis is talking about here, which, you know, these masters of the universe, what they're going through right now.
Right.
I know he's being tongue-in-cheek, but there's a little reality here.
There is a little reality to it, Betty, absolutely. And he talks about the fact that they're picking up transcendental meditation.
Right.
You know, we hear a lot about these guys going and doing Ironmans and, you know, trying to work off this stress because they don't have time to play golf anymore and they're so overwhelmed. So it's, you know, the world's smallest violins are playing up and down Park Avenue, obviously.
I know, obviously. But they are starting to leave Wall Street as well, right? And you hear everything from going to start your own restaurant or
Absolutely.
opening a food truck to going out to Silicon Valley, right? And,
That's right.
And beginning tech companies.
Absolutely. And we were actually out in Silicon Valley last week, actually in Sausalito, just a little north of Silicon Valley for our Next Big Thing conference. And it's amazing to hear both finance guys and then younger people who once would have aspired to work on Wall Street. The cool thing to do is start your own tech company. I mean, you think about the idea that the big show on HBO right now is Silicon Valley.
Yes.
You know, it's not Wall Street anymore.
Right.
I mean, this is sort of the holy grail at this point, is to be an
And
entrepreneur.
in fact, Wall Street is evil right now, and Silicon Valley is good. Jason, I want to read for you the part where Michael Lewis talks about exactly this trend you're mentioning. He wrote, quote, old bankers have been killing themselves. Young bankers, burned out by their 90-hour-a-week jobs, have been quitting in droves to work for startups. Hedge fund managers are now telling the public that the stock market feels so dangerous that they're selling their holdings and going into cash. But the reality is that it's really hard to also start a company, a tech startup.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things that was coming back from the venture capitalists who were on the stage, is saying, you know, it's very sexy, it's very alluring and romantic to start your own company, but this is a living hell when you're starting your own tech company. It's getting harder and harder.
One part of this that I just was laughing out loud at, Jason, it was the 3 recommendations that Michael Lewis had for any wealthy 1% to cope with this stress. So, number 1, sit on a fat kid. Number 2, I can't believe I just said that. Number 2, identify people in worse shape. And number 3, find the humor in things, which is exactly the point of Michael Lewis's column. What have you heard from Wall Street titans on how they are coping? You mentioned meditation, right?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, as I talk to especially the private equity guys, I mean, they're only having to cope to a certain extent. And in a funny way, private equity, you know, this sort of corner of Wall Street that is still relatively secretive, seems to be sort of the last bastion of the masters of the universe. Last week, we had news here on Bloomberg that Blackstone, the big private equity giant, the 5th billionaire, has sort of been unveiled there.
Oh, really?
Tom Hill, who runs their hedge fund business, is a long-standing guy in Wall Street terms and has become a big art collector. You know, presumably that's how he deals with some of the stress. But it's interesting to see in private equity. We've seen Tim Geithner go there. We've seen Mike Kavanaugh, who was, you know, in waiting to be the CEO of JP Morgan, is now going to be the co-president of Carlyle. So maybe the masters of the universe that Michael Lewis is talking about just need to go find a job in private equity.
Right, exactly. They have a transitory stop, essentially, on their way to owning a food truck.
That's right.
Bonuses, though, that we've seen, they've continued to come down as well for some of these Wall Street bankers. I think we've got a chart here of how bonuses have done. But I mean, pay itself clearly is another reason why that's driving people out of Wall Street, right?
It absolutely is. And what you're seeing clearly, in all seriousness, is heavier government regulation. I mean, that certainly came in the wake of the financial crisis on the big Wall Street banks. And even in private equity, you know, as I was alluding to, is still a little faster and looser. But even those guys are facing increased scrutiny. The SEC is looking into a lot of fees. So the screws are being turned, if only slightly, on some of these guys.
All right, Jason, thank you so much for joining us. Jason Kelly of Bloomberg Link, and you can read Michael Lewis's full column at Bloomberg.com/view.